In the last lecture, we had studied how to identify your particular, I guess, all the different type of audiences will be present in a scientific community when a person is presenting his or her research. Now, with that particular aspect keeping in mind, now what we are going to study is the techniques of how to identify your audience. That is, we have seen there are different type of audiences present, like some are experts, some are stakeholders, some are general public. Now how will you know if that particular type, that is that audience, has only scientific background or you have a non-scientific background? So these are the some techniques are present how to particularly identify audience. And along with this, we are also going to see if you have identified that type of a particular audience, how to modify your content or how to modify your way of, you can say, conveying the message to the audience. So let us first consider how the introduction and the types of how to identify your audience. Now here in this particular topic, I have mentioned various different methods of how to identify, or the strategies how to identify the target audience. So the most common way over here the researcher can employ is survey method. Now, what exactly is a survey method? It is not that survey method which we consider with respect to research methodology. That is, we have some sort of questions and we submitted questions to the audience or maybe to the persons, and we're expecting to fill it back. No, not that type of survey. Here, a survey means that the person will get an idea, or that person will ask some questions, maybe simple questions or maybe some technical questions, and from that the person is going to identify what type of, or will get an idea what exactly the type of audience it is. Now if at all a person asks a very simple question, the person will get an idea that the audience has a fair enough, you can say, understanding of the concept, but that will not allow that researcher to identify the type of audience. If the researcher becomes slightly more specific, it may happen that some of the persons may be able to answer it. So that means the researcher will get an idea. Okay, so there is a mixture of population, that there are some people who are in the technical, that means they might be from that field, and the others who have not answered, those might be from the non, you can say, field or non-biological background. Now here I have given a phrase, that is shooting in the dark. If a person has, or if that person is going to convey a message, but that person is not able to know what is the level of understanding of the audience, so it is like shooting in the dark. Now what exactly that phrase means? Now the phrase here literally translates it to it, it is useless to convey information which is detailed when the audience level of understanding is poor. So when the audience is of a general background, a general public background, in that case, the person cannot go into technical details, because in such a case that those whatever details are present will be not understandable by the audience. So in this survey, what the researcher or what that person is going to get the information, that particular survey will give the, you can say, the research an idea about the interest of the audience, whether the audience are interested in listening or not, whether the audience are going to ask questions, because there might be some doubts which might be present, so the audience can ask them. The research will get an idea the whether the audience is able to understand. So yeah, last lecture we had, I had mentioned ki something was nodding of the head, and also preference. The preference over here means ki whether the research or the speaker should go with the same tone or maybe a lighter tone. Now for this survey also, it takes time to think what the message will be conveyed, but also it will, in that case also, the person will have to craft well written survey questions. So these questions will be something the person has to make on the spot too. Then gather data points, that is collect the information, start collecting the information from the audience by asking questions, so that will give an idea to the researcher what kind of audience it is. Demographics, that means ki the mix, whether the audience is a homogeneous type or heterogeneous type. Now this particular communication strategy is also one way to strengthen the way of conveying the message to the audience. The second strategy is known as audience analysis tool. Now, in the case of scientific background, we do not use this, but the same method is used in marketing analysis. Now, let us consider the fact that a person is going to go for a marketing. Now, in that marketing way, what that person is going to do is the person is going to convey such information to the maybe customer, and the response of the customer will tell the market. You can say the person who is going marketing the behavior and the interest. So that will give an idea to that person what type of preference the needs of the peoples are. Third is feedback. Now feedback is one of the also common way to understand what type of audience it is. Now that feedback can be in the form of post-event survey. Now what do you mean post-event survey? That is after the guest lecture or seminar is conveyed or completed, a or a feedback form is given. So that will allow the participants to fill up that questions, and it is expected that the questions are filled and written back. So in that case, the organizers will get an idea whether the audience had an idea or the audience were able to understand or not. There might be comments, ratings, or direct interactions with the customers. Now, one of the example here it is key if, for example, let us consider a person is working in an organization, and that person is maybe respect to you can say advertisement or something department. Now that person has to be in constant contact with the sales team. Now why it is important that the department should be contact with the sales team, because this is the only team which is going to be in a direct contact with the customers. So we call this D2C, direct to customer. So when the sales team is in a direct contact with the customer, it will uh, they will have a better idea of what is the preference of the audience or the customers rather than the company itself. Okay, now coming to empathy mapping. The empathy mapping over here is wherein the person is able to understand the motives and feelings of the other, you can say, of the people. So empathy mapping, it includes what the points they are going to experience. That is whether they are going to experience, you can say, technical points, or whether they're going to, you can say, experience something a comfortable level points. What influences them? So is it that the paragraphs or sentences are going to excite them, or is there any artistic, you can say, consider graphs or maybe pie diagrams, charts are going to influence them, or whether it is the bar diagram or some images which are going to influence them or excite them. So that will give an idea to the researcher yes. So audience or more of them liking the colorful stuff. So, as communicators, now we being from the researcher side, so definitely it is our way of communicating to the audience. So, it is our responsibility that the bridge between the needs and knowledge, that is what the audience wants and how much it is conveyed, that bridge which is present, that needs to be completed or it needs to be closed. Now, if at all the person has got a tremendous amount of knowledge, but that person doesn't seem to apply that knowledge, then that particular problem it might happen if the two concepts do not come close to one another. So, if at all the person is able to correctly identify what type of audience it is, then the job will be done correctly. So the message of conveying the method of conveying the message or whatever information to the audience will be loud and clear. The audience in return is going to appreciate for the efforts taken by the researcher, and also they will be able to understand how that knowledge is going to impact them in maybe their day-to-day life or maybe some other you can say situation. Now, when the person is identifying what type of audience is present, the person is applying the tactics. So side by side, the person also has to adapt the communication styles. Now, what do you mean by adapting communication styles? Now, adapting communication style is changing the tone of the language towards the audience, because the information or content is a powerful tool, not just because it communicates what it is going to convey the message, but also how the message is conveyed. So there is a message is going to be conveyed, but also how the message is conveyed, that is the medium of conveying, that is also important. One has to understand. So after one has identified the person's categories, the audience types, now let us discuss how do I change my tone. Okay, so over here, what we are going to do is we are going to study an exam. We are going to take an example, and we are going to see how the content is going to change as the audience is going to change. So over here, when I say I'm going to change my style of conveying the message, I'm actually changing my dialect over here. So I take the example of DNA replication, of understanding or making the audience understand the concept of DNA replication. Now, let us assume that I have identified in front of me all the people present here are from scientific background, and if it is from biotech background, it is a good point or a plus point. So if I didn't, when I so I know that the persons are from scientific background, so definitely I have the very much freedom and liberty, and I'm at such a comfortable level that I can dwell, that is, go in depth in the technical details. So over here, I can go in explaining what is the role of enzymes, what is the DNA polymerase, what are the leading and lagging strand, and maybe the entire process of replication. Now, what if I am able to identify and ask questions, and from that response, I got to know that that in the audience there are no scientific people, but there are investors. Now, if I want to convey or if I want to explain the concept of replication to them also, how will I convey? So over here, I cannot go into too much details because it is not of use to them. So what can we do? So we can focus more on the process, like how does the DNA is going to unwind out of itself, or how the RNA primers are going to be formed. So over here, the focus should be that the investors are able to have a, you can say, good but broad idea of DNA replication. Okay, now why this? Because that these people are going to acknowledge the value or the efforts taken by you to convey a very technical, you can say, detail, getting converted into very simple manner. Now what if I identify and I got to know that the audience present in me or in front of me are all general public? Now, in that case, I cannot go into technical details. So, how do I convey them? So, in such a case, I have to use such a strategy which is very simple. So, over here, what I can do is I can go for use analogies. That is, I can compare the helicase with a zipper. Okay, like unzipping the you can say jeans, or unzipping the clothes, or unzipping the pants. That is how I can compare them. Okay, so what is going to help this? Now, why we need to come down to this simple level? Because it will make the content relatable. These people will be able to relate. Okay, so the helicase is going to unzip. So unzipping matlab something which is like unzipping the clothes. So they will connect that, and it will also help them to visualize. So they are relating, and at the same time they are visualizing. So what happens is here that fear of science, of technical and general understanding, that becomes very much, you can say, closer, and ultimately it is going to get closed. Now this is special particular picture which I have put up over here, how a one term in science language and the same term in general language, how the meaning differs. Now let me consider example of E. coli. Now E. coli, when we consider in technical language or in science language, it is like an organism, okay, which is used for some, we can say, research purposes. But for a common person, for him or her, it is like a pathogen. So the person consider this is a very bad, you can say, agent. It is going to kill me, or it is going to, you can say, harm me. If I consider a conductor, in science, it is like it is something which is a substance or an element which is going to conduct heat or electricity. But in the case of common language, the person will understand conductor who is in charge or is a leader present in maybe, you can say, bus or a train. When I consider organic, so in science we consider like organic chemistry, organic compounds, um, organic carbon. But when you consider in common language, for them, organic is something which is like organic farming. So that is what the people understand. When I consider a chemical, in science, it is like a reagent or maybe a substance. But when I consider in common language, for them it is like a chemical or a reagent or something which is hazardous. So when so that is something which is like the people do not know technical stuff. So it is our duty now here that to tell ki E. coli doesn't only mean it is harmful. It is also a useful bacteria or a germ present in the body which is going to synthesize vitamins or make vitamins for you. That is how the message should be conveyed. So with that being said, we have also completed with the topic of how to you can strategize your content according to the audience. Thank you so much.